Spartan culture was unusual not only for its time. Many of the laws of this militarized state would surprise even modern people. Mentioning Sparta, they often talk about the harsh principles of raising children and fearless warriors. But in the culture of this civilization, there were many amazing domestic and legal features. So the laws of Sparta provided for many cases when men were obliged to share their spouse with brothers, comrades, and even with strangers in general. Why did the Spartans have to share their wives with other men? Sparta considered its main task to create an ideal army of ideal fighters. At the age of 7, children were taken to a military camp. Boys were taught not only martial arts, but also survival skills. For example, they were encouraged to steal their own food. At the age of 15, a teenager became a warrior. He was obliged to live in a camp and serve in the army until the age of 30. The life expectancy of the fighters was not high, and the mortality rate was high. Sparta needed a constant influx of new warriors. And for this, families were needed and the birth of many children in them. Society and the state in every possible way condemned the unmarried and unmarried. This was not just shameful, but equated with a refusal to serve one's country. So warriors got married, but they could not live at home with their wives. After all, until the age of 30 they had to be in a military camp. The girls also received public education. In addition to literacy and physical training, they were also taught martial arts, but they were not drafted into the army. At the age of 15, the girls went home. They were strongly motivated to marry warriors. As a result, such husbands were at home only on occasional leave. The woman with the children was left alone on the farm for months. This influenced the status of women in society and the attitude towards them. The Spartans were independent and had a number of rights that other inhabitants of Hellas could not even dream of. Spartans were allowed to own land and have their own property. While the husband was fighting, the state also allocated an additional allotment of land to the family, which the woman disposed of. In her submission were held slaves, so it was not about physical labor, but about effective management. If the husband died, then the state plot was taken away. Personal property remained with the woman. According to ancient authors, during the Dawn period, women owned a third of all land in Sparta. This made them more independent. Laws in Sparta forbade violence against women. If someone began to persuade her to physical intimacy against her will, then the punishment could even be the death penalty. But the consent of the husband to the betrayal of his wife was not required by law. He had to agree to her cohabitation with other men on a number of occasions. These laws were passed in Sparta in order to increase the number of born boys. Given that husbands did not live at home until the age of 30, the law welcomed any means of increasing the population. When did a husband have to agree to share his wife with others? If several brothers had a small personal plot that was unprofitable to divide between families, then they could insist that the married brother share his wife. Such a family together would provide common children. If the husband was old or unable to produce offspring, he was instructed to share his wife with a comrade to ensure conception. If the Spartan categorically did not want to marry or his wife could not produce offspring, then he had to turn to his colleague with a request to land a wife to conceive and give birth to a child. The consent of the wife was necessary, but the husband could not refuse.